A few months ago, after a black teenager by the name of Carmelo Anthony killed a white teenager by the name of Austin Metcalf, I received so much pushback for simply acknowledging that the case had a lot to do with race. A lot of the people around me, they were scrambling, doing whatever they could to ignore the elephant in the room. But from day one, I was calling things out for what they were. From day one, I was calling it what it is. And it's not like this is something that I made my mind up on, just on my own. I didn't just decide, hey, this case has everything to do with race. No. I looked at what a large portion of the black community was saying. And they, from day one, made it all about race. From day one, they were celebrating the fact that a young white kid had his life ended way too soon by a young black kid. They were celebrating, they were making memes, they were harassing the kid's family. They are still harassing the kid's family to this day. And they raised over $500,000 celebrating, posting TikTok videos, dancing, happy that a young white kid got killed. And I told people then, this is all about race. But a lot of people, mainly white people, tried to make all of these excuses. They tried to blame everything else. They tried to say, no, these people just strongly believe it's self-defense. And I told them then, I said, just wait. We'll have another story. We'll have another case. And there cannot be no self-defense arguments in these cases that we'll see in the future. And I want to see what you guys say then. Well, because of how things are, because a certain portion of our society commits just so many violent crimes, we've had a plethora of stories since then that a lot of people are trying to turn a blind eye towards. In fact, we have another story. Well, in reality, we have like a dozen stories, but there's one that is really gaining traction right now about a Ukrainian refugee that came here to escape the war in Ukraine, only to get killed by some black guy on the train. Now, I told people during the Carmelo Anthony case and other cases that all of this is about race, not maybe for you, not maybe for me, but for a certain portion of the black community, it is all about race for them. They love it. They love it. They celebrate when a white person gets killed. Look at the way they celebrated when OJ got off. But this young Ukrainian girl, she gets killed on the train, totally unprovoked. No excuse. There's no, oh, it's self-defense, or, oh, he was scared of the police. There's no excuse here, right? No excuse at all. Yet you look to the same portions of the black community that celebrated Carmelo Anthony, and they're celebrating this young girl's death. Right now, as we speak, they are celebrating this young girl's death. And what is the argument now? I want to know the same people who gave me so much pushback. I even had fellow YouTubers and stuff stop talking to me simply for acknowledging that a large portion of the black community is very racist, and they're violent, and they just hate white people. And now we have this white girl killed. There's no argument for self-defense, even though there wasn't an argument for self-defense with Carmelo Anthony either. But this is just totally unprovoked. A girl is sitting there innocently on a train and just gets killed from behind. Yet they're still making excuses for it. Right now, you can go online. You want to know what the excuse is? It won't even surprise you. It's the same thing we always hear from these people. Oh, the girl must have said the N-word or something. The girl said the N-word, most likely. Because in these people's minds, they think if someone says the N-word, you can just end their life on a train, right? But the video shows us everything. We know the girl didn't say the N-word. But in the video, you could see the girl on her phone texting. So now certain portions of the black community, they're saying that this young white girl, she must have said the N-word in her text messages. And that's what set the guy off behind her. Those are the excuses they're making right now. And it's crazy because even if that was the case, even though we know it's not the case, even if it was, in their mind, that justifies taking someone's life. And just like we saw with Austin Metcalf, whenever we see an innocent white person get killed for no reason by a black person, they flood the internet with all of these weird stories, all of these weird excuses, all of these accusations about racism, and all of this stuff because it's the only thought that their mind can formulate. And we're watching it play out again. And like I said, in this case, there were no excuses in any of these cases, but especially in this case, how can anyone defend this? How can anyone try to weasel in and find an angle to defend what happened to that girl on the train? But nevertheless, you go on TikTok right now, they're celebrating. They're celebrating like their football team just won the big game this Sunday because they got to see a black man with dreads in the life of a young, pretty white girl with blonde hair. In fact, I'll show you a couple of the TikToks, but first, if you're here, if you enjoyed the videos, if you like the channel, if you appreciate me saying things that a lot of people ain't going to say here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you share the video because YouTube ain't going to share it with nobody. I need you guys to share it. Drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you would like to donate, because YouTube does not support me when I talk about stuff like this, you could always donate via Cash App or Super Thanks. It's not mandatory, but it's always humbly and greatly appreciated. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at this guy celebrating the death of this young girl, and then we'll be right back with more. And when everything else fails, instead of condemning one of their own, instead of looking at that video like a human being, like we are, seeing how just evil that is, instead of acknowledging how bad that is, it's the what about slavery though? When I saw that video, I see a human's life being ended for absolutely no reason. When these people see that video, there's no compassion, there's no sympathy, there's no empathy, they don't feel it in their heart. The first thing that comes to mind is, oh well, what about slavery though? Who cares he killed the white girl? What about slavery? What about this? What happened 400 years ago? And this is what people need to understand. And I know some people are starting to get it. People need to understand. The videos you just saw, that's not a one-off. Okay? That's not just a random person with these fringe beliefs. A large portion, not all, but there's a large portion of the black community that thinks just like this. This is not an isolated ideology coming from just a few people. This is not some weird way of thinking that people just got from the internet. This way of thinking, this mentality, is being instilled into basically an entire race of people. And this mentality is being instilled into them or upon them by their parents at home, if they have any, grandparents, their pastors, their preachers, their favorite TV shows, their favorite movies, the music they listen to, the mainstream media, the woke politicians that are running these big cities that are riddled with crime, most of the crime being committed by a certain group of people. It's not like, oh, it's just a couple of random people with radical beliefs. No, these radical beliefs, it's like the common belief. It's the common way of thinking. Listen, I can't speak on how things were years and years ago. But when I was growing up, I was taught not to be a hateful, bigoted person towards anyone, right? But other groups of people were obviously being taught something different. Because as someone who grew up in a predominantly black area, I watched as this hate started to fester over the years. Even people who I was friends with all of a sudden became hateful somewhere down the line. And it's being, like I said, it's being instilled into them. It's really hard to explain. But what I'm trying to say is it's deeper than just, oh, some guy feels this way. Or, hey, that's just a random racist in a crowd. No, this is a group mentality. And like I said, it's being passed down into almost an entire race of people via parents, media, the church, every step of the way. And it's gotten to the point where these people feel as if they can't be held accountable for any of their actions because of slavery, though, because of oppression, because of racism. So they'll look at some guy with dreads stab a young white girl on the train, and they're totally numb to it. They think it's okay. So how do we correct that mentality? And how can we even begin to address the problem whenever someone addresses the problem, they become public enemy number one? And I pointed this out in other videos. I want to point it out again here. The problem that we're facing, at least when it comes to this issue, is that people have more of a problem with people who are pointing out the issue as opposed to the issue itself. People rather see 1,000 stories of white women getting killed on the train. They rather see 1,000 stories like that than to see one person like me calling this stuff out for what it is. And you can't call it out for what it is without acknowledging the racial aspect to it, because there's a certain race committing all of these crimes. So we can sit here in denial, but as we sit here in denial, people are getting killed every day and the problem's not getting solved. And as I just said, you cannot solve a problem until you acknowledge the problem. I've acknowledged the problem. I'm waiting on the rest of America to wake up and start acknowledging the problem, because I want to feel safe when I go outside. Everyone deserves to feel safe. And there's a certain group of people that are making the majority of people feel unsafe, including people in their own community. Because black people are the number one victims of other black people. So it's not like, it's just happening to white people. Black people are victims as well. So I think all of us collectively would like things to get better. But hey, I'm just one person. I can only do so much. I can only say so much. And you guys know how I feel about the situation. I want to know how you feel about it, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.